You're watching the Legal Breakdown. So, Glenn, in our previous episode, you and I preempted some news by suggesting that E Jean Carroll might have a basis to sue Trump for defamation again. Now there's reporting that, in fact, she is considering a lawsuit again for defamation. If you were representing E Jean Carroll, what specifically would constitute a basis for defamation?
So he posted a series of scorched earth social media posts in the immediate aftermath of the jury finding for E Jean Carroll and awarding her $5 million combined compensatory damages and punitive damages. We'll talk about how punitive damages play into E Jean Carroll's decision as to whether she wants to bring another suit in a second. But, it was more of the same. I don't know this woman. This is horrible. It's a witch hunt. After the jury declared that you did know the woman, you sexually abused the woman, you intentionally and maliciously lied about, among other things, not knowing the woman. And Donald Trump does it all over again, not only in posts, but he's singing the same tune in this ill-advised CNN town hall that was just conducted. And so really, this will be a fairly easy defamation suit to bring because you already have proved it once to a jury's satisfaction to the tune of $5 million. So really the question for E Jean Carroll and her legal team becomes, do we want to go through this again? Do we want to, spend the next probably year, again, bringing charges, engaging in whatever limited discovery might be required based on these most recent posts and statements, get it back on the court calendar for a trial date, and then go through a trial again? If I had to guess, I would say E Jean Carroll might just take her $5 million victory and move on and not having to sort of continue to relive this nightmare over and over and over again.
Trump will argue that it's all just free speech and he can deride her all he wants. So why is what he's doing not protected speech?
Well, because you can't intentionally and maliciously lie about somebody to the damage of their reputation, to the damage of their earning potential, to the damage of their mental anguish, pain, and suffering, which is exactly what E Jean Carroll and her legal team just finished proving up to a jury's satisfaction. And Joey Tacopina, Donald Trump's defense attorney, made all these First Amendment arguments, but the First Amendment does not protect intentionally false defamatory speech. You just don't get to damage the reputation and the earning potential of another by lying intentionally and maliciously about them.
Yeah, and it kind of defies logic, the fact that Trump was already, like you said, he was already found liable for having done it once to the tune of $5 million. So to vomit out the same exact defamatory statements after he's already been found liable to the tune of $5 million is just mind-bending. It just shows the sociopathy that he's dealing with here, that he just cannot stop himself from just spewing this same rhetoric over and over and over again, regardless of how much money he's forced to pay out.
Yeah, and nobody will accuse Donald Trump of learning his lesson,
Right.
of course, other than Senator Susan Collins.
Exactly. Now, in case people didn't watch our last episode, one interesting tidbit there was the fact that this lawsuit between Donald Trump and E Jean Carroll isn't actually over, that there's still another defamation case pending in front of the same judge, Judge Kaplan, I believe. What's that case, and how does it differ from the one that Trump just lost?
Yeah, really interesting. And this one is kind of procedurally dense, but let me try to break it down to its component parts. Remember, the first time E Jean Carroll sued Donald Trump, it was for him making defamatory statements about her while he was president. So what happened then was Bill Barr, the corrupt attorney general who would protect Donald Trump at all costs, Bill Barr swooped in and tried to sub out Donald Trump and install in his place the Department of Justice. Why did he try to do that? Well, because if you are a president and you are making statements that are within the scope of your official presidential duties, well, then you can't be sued. You can be removed from the lawsuit. The Department of Justice can take your place and the case gets dismissed.
Well, hold on, Glenn. Are you suggesting that Donald Trump attacking his sexual abuse victim isn't within the confines of his job as president of the United States?
Shocking. Yeah, that
Yeah.
is why we elect people. It's because we're hoping that they're going to step up and defame the people they sexually assaulted. That's
Yeah.
what I'm looking for in a candidate. And so, interestingly, the point you just made, Brian, is the point that Judge Kaplan latched onto. Judge Kaplan also has this other E. Jean Carroll suit that's been kicking around since 2020. And he said, no, this is not within the scope of your official presidential duties. And then Donald Trump appealed that. And Judge Kaplan right now is wrestling with the factual question of whether Donald Trump, could possibly have made these defamatory statements about a sexual assault victim within the scope of his official presidential duties. That issue is still kicking around. I know that's a long explanation, but that other E. Jean Carroll lawsuit is still active, is still in the system, is sitting with Judge Kaplan. And so now we saw some reporting today that E. Jean Carroll might bring a third suit because of these most recent defamatory statements. The other thing that she might be able to do is actually add some counts, ask Judge Kaplan to let her add some counts to the existing suit and maybe consolidate those two. But lots of procedural hurdles to overcome here. And this is going to be the kind of thing we have to watch to see how these, this suit or these suits end up playing out.
All right, well, with that said, then, is it unreasonable to conclude that if E. Jean Carroll got $5 million in damages in that first case, the initial case, that Trump could then be on the hook for the same amount in the other cases that are coming up?
So I think it could be the same amount. It could be less. And here's why. Because remember, they also found him liable of sexual abuse. And some of the money judgment they awarded to E. Jean Carroll was to try to compensate her for the damage he caused when he sexually abused her. So if she decides to bring what would be a third suit, it would probably be only for the defamation. So you could expect an award if she wins to be somewhat less than the $5 million. But here's the other thing. We talked about punitive damages. Part of what the jury awarded E. Jean Carroll were punitive damages, which are designed to punish the wrongdoer for his intentional misconduct and deter the wrongdoer from engaging in future defamation. And within 24 hours, what did the wrongdoer, Donald Trump, did? He engaged in more defamation. So it could very well be that the next jury, should this case end up back with another jury, can say, boy, you learned nothing from the punitive damages the last jury awarded E. Jean Carroll. So we're going to double them up. We're going to triple. We're going to quadruple. I mean, that wouldn't surprise me, given that Donald Trump is a repeat offender, a chronic offender, and it may very well be that a future jury will take that into account.
Yeah, and that's usually how punishments work, right? Like the first one could be a warning, it could be a slap on the wrist, it could be a fine, depending on what you're talking about. But when you violate the law or do something wrong, the penalties build up. They get worse as the violations accumulate. So it wouldn't defy logic here that it would get worse for Trump as he continues to defame her over and over and over again.
Yeah, when you have priors, you are deserving of heightened punishment. That's kind of the way the system works.
Now, Glenn, let's finish off with this. Also at that misguided CNN town hall, Trump incriminated himself on two separate occasions, both with regard to the stolen classified documents and the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger. So both ongoing special counsel probes. Can you discuss those?
Yeah, this is like incriminating manna from heaven. Donald Trump can lie casually and cavalierly at these town hall meetings, perhaps with impunity. But I can tell you, when these lies are presented by prosecutors in criminal cases, they're going to be pretty powerful. Let me use the two instances that I think are most directly and sharply incriminating from what Donald Trump said at the town hall. First of all, Caitlin Collins asked him about the classified documents that he, let's call it what it is, stole from the White House, unlawfully took from the federal government and transported down to Mar-a-Lago. She asked him, quote, "Did you ever show classified documents to anyone?" Here was Donald Trump's answer, quote, "Not really, not that I can think of." Listen, I would bet a buck, that's my betting limit. I'm not a high roller. I would bet a buck that Jack Smith's team has tons of evidence that Donald Trump showed documents to others after he stole them from the White House and brought them to Mar-a-Lago. So what will that statement prove? It will prove he's trying to cover up his own crimes, and it will prove consciousness of guilt. Those are really important, incriminating statements from a prosecutor's perspective, even if they just kind of went in one ear and out the other when he said them in the setting of a town hall. And then if we move down to Georgia, he really hurt himself, probably even worse, in connection with what we all believe is the upcoming prosecution of Trump and others by District Attorney Fani Willis. Kate Collins asked him about his conversation with then Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, that infamous phone call. Here's the question she asked. You asked him, Brad Raffensperger, to find you votes. Here was Donald Trump's precise answer, quote, I didn't ask him to find me anything. Here's what a prosecutor is going to do. I promise you, they will play that clip. I didn't ask Brad Raffensperger to find me anything. They'll put government exhibit 1 on it. Then they'll put government exhibit 2 on the next audio clip, which is Donald Trump on a recorded phone call saying to Brad Raffensperger, find me 11,780 votes. When you juxtapose those two things, you put them side by side, that's when the jurors' eyes will begin to roll up in the jury box. They'll be looking at their watch, saying to themselves, okay, when can we get back to the deliberation room so we can vote guilty? Donald Trump is going to live the rest of his life, I predict, on the wrong side of the V. What do I mean by that? Well, he already contended with E Jean Carroll v. versus Donald Trump, and he lost. He's already indicted in the people of New York v. Donald Trump. He will soon be indicted, we all suspect, people of Georgia v. Donald Trump, United States of America v. Donald Trump. He's going to live out his miserable, life on the wrong side of the V.
Well, that seems like the perfect place to end. So with that said, we'll continue to stay on top of this potential third defamation suit brought forward by E Jean Carroll. Of course, we have the second one that's ongoing right now, along with the other raft of legal jeopardy and woes that Donald Trump is dealing with. So if you want to keep on top of that stuff, make sure to subscribe. The links are right here on the screen. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
And I'm Glenn Kirshner.
You're watching The Legal Breakdown.